Hey, what's up, Form? It's Girl Hands, and I'm bringing you a short little game of Domination on launch. I actually joined this game mid-session, and we're down 50 points, and I don't have a problem joining into games like this, as long as the score isn't past 150 points, and I feel like the deficit isn't large enough that we can't come back and win the game. But today I want to talk about my experiences playing solo versus playing with a full team. So first let me touch base a little bit on solo, and one of the biggest cons whenever you're running solo is you're never guaranteed to be able to communicate with your teammates. You don't know if your team's going to even be running mics at all, so you're going to have to throw that right out the window whenever you're playing. And a lot of times I don't even have my mic on just because it's par for the course that nobody's going to be communicating too often. And for the guys who've never really ran with the team before, you may be surprised at how beneficial communication can be and how much of an effect it can have on the outcome of the game. So something else that could be considered a con, I guess it really depends on what you're trying to achieve whenever you're running solo in a certain game type, is you don't know the motivations of your teammates whenever you're put into a game. So say for instance, in my experiences, I have played games of Domination where I have teammates that treat it strictly like TDM. They have zero interest in capturing flags. They just want to focus on whatever gets them the most kills with the largest KD or the largest spread as possible. And I've also played in games where people want to get montage clips. They want to work on, quick scoping or throwing tomahawks across map. And again, they're not really too worried about the objective. And I've seen people maybe want to focus on pro perks, and with so many different people playing the game, they don't necessarily go into, say, a game of Domination or capture the flag with the intentions of winning. So you have to keep that in mind. Sometimes people's goals or motives aren't necessarily going to align with you, and that could be a hindrance, especially if you're trying to win the game. I mean, it's almost putting you a man down against the other team if your guys don't really want to focus on what's necessary to win. So another thing to kind of worry about when you're playing solo. And I really don't have a problem with that. Everybody paid $60 for the game, and they can play it how they see fit. As long as they're not cheating or boosting, I really don't have an issue with it. But because so many people have different approaches and different goals whenever they're playing in a game, say like Domination, which does occasionally require teamwork and focus on the objectives, whenever I'm running solo, I go on there with the expectations that I'm not going to win them all. So what are some of the advantages of playing solo? Well, one of them is it presents a challenge. As I mentioned before, you're not going to have an efficient means of communication with most people in solo matches, and you can't really rely on your teammates because you don't know what their objectives or their goals are whenever they're going to the game. So you're going to have to develop your own personal set of strategies and methods if your overall goal is to win games. And if you can develop tactics that work for you, then it can really make the experience a lot more fun, especially in situations where maybe you are the deciding factor as to why your team won a game. So to give you an example of something that I picked up in order to help me win games of Domination in solo situations is, although in this video I'm running Blackbird, Chopper Gunner, and Dogs, I find it to be much more beneficial to run lower end kill streaks. So UAV, Counter UAV, Napalm, Mortars, and Blackbird I found to be much more helpful for me. And the reasons for that are, I'm not going to get the higher end kill streaks at the same frequency that I am the lower end ones. And also the Chopper Gunner and the Gunship are not very reliable. And the reason for that is because they can be shot down so quickly. So you can spend a lot of time building up to that kill streak, only to have them shot down in mere seconds. And the Chopper Gunner has its disadvantages in Domination. For one, you'll notice in this upcoming scene, I'm not able to defend the B flag because it's located inside. I can't shoot them. And also, if our goal is to capture flags versus defending them, then my team's at a little bit of a disadvantage because I'm stuck up in the air. So in that respect, I'm actually kind of out of the action. Now, the UAV, I know a lot of people in this game run Ghost, but as long as a couple people on the enemy team are not using it, then I can get an idea of where the enemy team is spawning and where they're generally located. And also, people tend to rely fairly heavily on their radar in core game modes, so whenever you throw up a counter UAV, it can throw a team off their game, and it can also help all of your teammates that are not running silencers. And because of the area of denial effect that Napalm leaves behind for several seconds, that can be a key factor in being able to capture a flag and keeping the enemy back while you're doing so. And mortars work very well at defending flags if you're not in those locations. So say if I'm at the C flag and I need to prevent the enemies from capturing the A flag, I can just quickly launch that out. And finally, the Blackbird, I think, is the most powerful kill streak in the game, simply because you know the exact location of the enemy at any given time, and your teammates know that information as well. Now, things change kind of drastically whenever you're running with a full team. For one, I don't necessarily have to put a whole lot of thought into what kill streaks I'm using for a game. I can just pick what I want. You also have the two things I mentioned that you didn't have while you're playing solo. So going into a game with a team, you know your teammates' play styles, what they're trying to achieve, and their overall objectives. And you also have the capacity for communication, so if you need them to go capture a flag while you're defending something, they can do that. Or say you're playing TDM and you need them to hold a certain position, that's possible as well. So those things work really well in terms of winning games. But what are the disadvantages whenever you're running with a team? Well, it can get kind of boring and monotonous if you're winning games over and over again, and you almost have to find little mini games to make it challenging. Say, for instance, playing pistols only TDM or trying to get a 200-0 game of domination. So for me, I like spending time doing both. I like playing solo because it presents a challenge, and you're not always guaranteed to win. Like this game right here, we couldn't pull out the victory. But I like playing with teams also because you can do things that you can't normally do while you're playing solo. So let me know your opinions on playing solo versus playing with the team. I know some guys that almost exclusively play solo even though they have the ability to play with a team, and other guys that are the exact opposite. They prefer to only play when they have a full team. As for this game right here, sometimes it doesn't matter how well you do. I've learned playing solo domination that you're not going to win them all. But as always guys, take it easy.